The following program is a production of All the Way Live Entertainment.
This show is sponsored by APCW Wrestling Academy. Learn wrestling from WWE Hall of Famer Robert Gibson. If you're interested in becoming a professional wrestler, contact them at 770-871-5417 or online at apcwdouglasville@gmail.com. Also, by Collar and Elbow brand. Save 10% on your next purchase by using our discount code WPNWrestle. That's WPNWrestle at checkout and get a discount on great collar and elbow products.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
The World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
I was going to say tonight, but today I have one of the true standouts in the world of women's wrestling. She's been a multiple-time champion all over the place. Held women's tag team titles, helped put the spotlight on the women's tag teams long before the WWE decided to remake the tag team titles for their own purposes. She's been an intergender icon, and I even got the chance to call one of those matches. I'm proud of that. She was a competitor in the Mae Young Classic, a dancer, a vegan warrior, a princess, and everything in between, but most importantly, she's a wrestler. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest, the incredible Kimber Lee.
Hello.
Now, did I cover everything? Was that
You did. That was a great intro. Couldn't have done it better myself.
Well, you know, coming from a wrestler, that's high praise, because normally y'all are very good at talking yourselves up.
We are pretty good at it. You're not wrong.
Well, you know, I guess that just comes with the territory. That's part of the process. Got to be a little self-indulged on occasion, I guess.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's part of the gig.
You know, I want to say this before I get into my questions. The last time I saw you, I did catch you briefly when you were making the rounds in Atlanta. I believe you were flipping off the crowd as part of the hierarchy at that point.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Oh, that's terrible. Terrible. Why would you do such a thing? How on earth could you be talked into? You seem like such a sweet young lady.
You know, sometimes appearances are just that. You don't know what's underneath there. No, I'm kidding. I really am a nice person. But
Okay. All right. Well, you know, for those that are asking, you can go scan through the archives. I cannot remember the actual episode number. I wish I'd written it down. Silly me for not doing it, but it's in there. There's Princess Kimber Lee versus Ashton Starr in a mixed tag match, so feel free to check that out at your whim. So we are now going to go into a little bit of your history, and then we're going to try to round this thing on out to present day. For those that aren't aware, well, first off, why wrestling? I mean, because, you know, you seem like a fairly talented young lady. I listed off dancer in there. So,
yeah.
You know, that's a pretty far, well, maybe not a far cry, but you could be out there dancing somewhere on somebody's stage,
Yeah.
and, you know, something like that.
Well, you'd be surprised how similar the two worlds are, actually. But so how it all kind of started for me, wrestling was something that I was always intrigued by, even as a little kid. But growing up, I was really young during the Attitude Era. And so my mom was like, absolutely not. You're not watching that. And I can understand why. But I was still always just intrigued by it. And I would sneak off to some friends' houses, and they would be allowed to watch it. So I would still catch wrestling here and there. But no real idea how one would become a wrestler at all. And at some point, I kind of fell off from being a fan and didn't really watch it just because it wasn't something that was allowed in my house from a young age. So it just kind of disappeared for a while. And then fast forward to me turning 18, and I moved to Philadelphia to go to the University of Arts for dance, because dancing is what I had done my whole life. I grew up a ballerina and moved on into other forms of dance, and that's what I thought I was going to do. But when I was doing that and going to school, I got a job in a haunted house, which was called Fright Factory, that I met a lot of, outside Philadelphia people through that, and it just so happened that this haunted house is placed right behind the ECW arena in Philly. So some of the people I met were wrestlers, and it just kind of worked out that a friend of mine, who I'm still dear friends with to this day, took me to a wrestling show, and I ended up through going to shows, meeting my trainer, Drew Gulak, and starting to talk about training. And it was something that I was like, I kind of want to do this, and give it a shot. And just remembering how much I loved it when I was really young. And I went for it, and fast forward to a month shy of 10 years later, and here we are.
10 years. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really hadn't even thought about that. That you've been doing it that long.
This is the decade year. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about that.
Well, how does it feel just now that you say that? I ask this question every once in a while for some people who I've known who've kind of come in as a rookie, but all of a sudden they turn around and they're the veteran of the locker room. One I would point out in particular is Aja Pereira. I was videoing her when she was pretty much just kind of starting out. Now she's kind of like a locker room vet. So how weird is that for you when you go in and it's like, oh my God, it's Kimber Lee?
Yeah, I still don't it's weird because I don't think of myself like that still. I still think, because I feel like with wrestling or any sort of, I call it an art form. That's what I always call wrestling. But I feel like with any sort of art form or performance, anything like that, you just always have so much to learn and you never stop learning. And so I still don't think of myself as a veteran because I still have so much to learn myself. But there's been moments where I see the girls turn to me and look to me for advice and stuff, and it's crazy, and I give it if you ask, but it's just a crazy feeling that I don't know when that switch flipped, but it did, and I try to handle it.
Now look, you're gonna have to accept that now. I know that's weird. You're gonna have to accept it. You are the vet now.
Well, and what I went to school for was dance education, is what my degree is in. And so, teaching is always something I've wanted to do and be a part of. And putting this out there into the universe, something I haven't done and I really want to do more of, is helping teach wrestling in any way I can. I haven't really gotten any opportunities to do seminars or anything like that. And I would really like to, if anybody wants to bring me in for one. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Are you kidding? I'm sure. Well, first off, have you made that known before now? Because it might just be a case of you haven't made it known. Have you made it known before now?
I haven't been the most vocal about it. I will say that. I've said it, I feel like, on another podcast once, but that's really the extent of it. So I should probably myself do more work into being vocal about that too.
I'm just going to go ahead and make the prediction now that before the end of 2019, there will be a Kimber Lee seminar for young lady wrestlers. I don't know if you want to...
And young men wrestlers. I don't discriminate.
Okay. Very good. Very good. So there we go. That for young wrestlers in general.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think you might need to work that out.
Yeah, I think we do.
I'm sure there are several promotions or sites that would love to have you come in and teach a class and let them know how you do what you do.
Yeah, it would be an awesome opportunity just to give back too,
Well, how sweet are you? So you gave up dance for the crazy world of pro wrestling.
I wouldn't say gave up dance. I don't think that ever is really going to leave me. There's plenty of times where I still, like, if I'm by myself, I put on music and I just start moving. Like, I don't think that's part of me that will ever go away. And I still even occasionally will look up and go take a class here or there. There's a couple clips on my Instagram of when I've taken some hip-hop classes in the last year or so.
I did see that, yes.
Yeah, and so I guess it's still a big part of me. It's just with going to college and with wrestling and stuff too. Dance is such a difficult world to be a part of in its own way. And the performance side in that art form became something that wasn't for me, I would say. That's why I ended up with the education degree instead of a performance degree. But I think it also has to do with finding wrestling, because I started my training when I was a sophomore in college, so I was going to school at the same time then. And wrestling just kind of took over. It became this thing that I was completely obsessed with, and I didn't want to do anything else.
Okay. So wrestling just took the majority share of your creative juices for a while, but dancing is still there. That's fair to say.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, absolutely.
So
I mean, I've got that $100,000 piece of paper hanging on my wall. So my degree, I got my bachelor's. It's there. I've even thought about potentially going back to school for dance and movement therapy, similar to music therapy or anything like that. A little lesser known form of therapy, though. I'd get a master's and MFA. So we'll see. Maybe down the line.
So let's just create a hypothetical here, and then I'll jump back on to wrestling. If you were approached to perform on stage for somebody, I don't know, you took hip hop classes, they may like your look and say, hey, I want her as one of my background dancers or something like that. Is that something that you would seriously consider?
Oh, yeah. In a heartbeat. Just to say I got to do that, that would be crazy. I don't know if I'm up to that level anymore, but yeah, that would be wild.
Anymore? What are you talking? You make it sound like it.
It's hard, man.
Back in my day. Yeah.
I mean, let's put it this way. I've been wrestling 10 years. I've been dancing because, dance, I still go take classes, so I'll say I'm still dancing actively for almost 27 years. So.
Well, then that right there says it.
Yeah.
She's ready. I'm gonna put that out into the universe too. Kimber Lee needs to be on somebody's stage dancing, a hip hop show somewhere. So.
Well, I have danced in wrestling rings. It has happened. So.
That I did see. I saw you.
Yeah, it's very buried down in there somewhere. But I beat. He's gonna kill me for this, because I still hold on to it. And this was like 7 years ago. But I beat ACH in a dance-off one time at AIW Wrestling, and I also did a dance-off with Shane Strickland in England for Fight Club Pro once. So they're out there.
Well, the one that I recall is yourself and the former Lovelace. I guess I'm saying it right. Heidi. We'll just go with that. There was she had the kind of Rosie the Riveter look happening there, and I think he was doing the whole Roaring 20s dig.
Yeah, well, because I'm a flapper there, so I definitely dance. Yes, at old wrestling, I am a flapper girl.
See, there we go. Look, I jogged your memory and brought something back that even you had kind of logged away.
That was such a cool experience because I won the match, and once I won the match, a legitimate Model T Ford drove into the building, and I jumped in the back, kicking my feet the whole way, and got driven out of the venue. It was the coolest thing ever.
Oh my gosh, where did they find a Model T?
Right, yeah, like Model T Ford, the original.
All right, well, bravo to whatever promotion that was.
It's Old Wrestling,
Old Wrestling,
OLDE, and they run pretty every couple of months throughout the year. They put on shows. I believe, don't quote me on this, I'm really bad with my schedule, but I believe I will be back there in August.
Okay. Well, then they
But
must
yes, I
be
am
living
going
up to the
back
name.
soon, so, yeah.
If they call themselves Old Wrestling and they produce the Model T, they clearly live up to the name.
Oh, yeah, it's all old style. Everything is 20s themed, so there's Prohibition. It's a whole, and
What?
it's great. It's great. You're really immersed into the world when you go there.
You mean the booze is illegal there? Oh, no.
Well, no, they don't. But there's, there's like they have the jailbirds who are the drunks, and then they have the Prohibition cops who is a big feud.
Ah, okay. Now I got you.
Yes.
I'm starting to think that you may have another skill kind of wrapped up in there somewhere. Acting, I mean, performing clearly is in your blood. Have you ever thought about that? I mean, just off the riff here. Have you ever thought about, hey, you know what? I think I'd like to do a movie.
I have random, but I've always
asked random
wanted to be
stuff.
in like
sorry.
No, I like that. I like that interviews aren't like the same 5 questions every time. This is fun. But I've random like bucket list item I have is I want to be in a horror film. And I want to die in a horror film.
What?
I don't know, because I don't know. I think it'd be cool to have like this crazy death scene in the movie, and I don't know. Zombie movie, I would always have also kind of wanted to be a zombie in a zombie movie. At one point, I thought about auditioning to be on The Walking Dead. So.
Well, come on down. It's right here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Right, it is in Atlanta.
So, yeah, you should come on down and be a zombie. I'm going to pair you off with Lindsay Snow because she has this super duper weird movie that she's a fan of. And we talked about that at length on several occasions. It's so weird, in fact, that I cannot sit past the trailer. So, Tokyo Gore
What
Police.
Movie? Oh, yeah, I don't know that one.
Well, I would just say this. I don't know what your threshold for gore and just weird stuff happens to be. But if you're like me, the trailer might be just more than you can.
I don't know. Mine's pretty high. I did work in a haunted house as well. Maybe this is why I want to be like a crazy, I don't know. I've never wanted to be like the heroine or something in that, like that kind of a movie. I've always wanted to be like the evil monster.
Well, when I finally get the money to shoot that big zombie movie, that low budget zombie movie, you'll be one of the people I'm going to email you and say I got it.
Perfect.
I will write a role specifically for you and say, and she gets bit and turns into a zombie. Page 3.
Perfect.
We have not talked about wrestling
at all. Not at all.
I'm sorry, people out there. Mr. Green has steered off of the given path, but okay, I'm gonna bring it back around here. I'll get to the random stuff later. All right. Now I got to look at my questions. I got to see where I was. What do you remember about women's wrestling uncensored?
Not much. Like.
All right, moving on.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That might not be good for the.
Yeah, you might be pulling from when
I don't want to, make anybody feel bad. It's like she didn't remember us. So, okay, well, Mr. Green will take the hit on that. I must have typed it up wrong. So there we go.
Are you thinking WSU, Women's Superstars Uncensored?
You know what? That might be what I'm thinking about. Thank you.
Okay.
Kimber Lee for the save.
Yeah. Okay, because I was like WWU. I don't know that one, but yeah, no, WSU. That was one of the first women's companies that really gave me an opportunity. Honestly, it was the first major women's company that I worked for, and I got to. That's where I started to tag with Annie Social. Is this what you were thinking about?
Yes, there we go.
Okay, and so it was WSU. Team, okay.
That was an interesting team name that you guys was using. Chicks using nasty tactics. I'm sure the people could put
we were stuck between that and 2-woman attack team. You can put that one together yourself. But yes.
Okay, now I have to ask. Why?
To become my
Why?
tag partner antisocial at all.
Oh.
It was an inside joke between the two of us, and our friend, I don't know if you remember Eric C. Jones, he was a wrestler. I don't know if he's active anymore, but back then he was. And he actually came up with that name, and it just honestly made us laugh hysterically, and so that's why we went with it. But yeah, Annie's one of my mentors from the beginning. I love her to death, and she's the best. And I really treasure our time that we got to tag together and be champions together too.
All right. And at that, I'm going to assume this is year maybe 1 or 2 for you at that point.
Well, I trained for 2 years before I ever got to have a match, so it would have been 3 or 4.
Okay.
Technically, but 1 or 2 active, yes.
Okay, 1 or 2 active. So, because I remember looking at the photo, I was like, man, that's a completely different look and vibe.
Yeah, I've changed a lot.
Nothing close to where you are now.
Yeah, for sure.
Somewhere along the line, you picked up royalty.
Yes, I did. And that came from Chikara, is where the royalty began, and where the princess was born.
Okay. But just to go back one step into WSU, thank you for making sure that I got the name right. There is a picture with you and Annie where you have a huge knot on your forehead.
Yes. I mean, with wrestling comes risk, and I believe that was when we won the titles back from the Juicy Product, was that match. And, just accidents happen. I'm pretty sure there's blood all over my face, too, and it wasn't the first time, nor was it the last time that's happened to me. And, it can happen sometimes. I haven't, knock on wood, broken my nose yet, but usually, what happens in that situation is I wrestle with my nose ring in, and sometimes it'll cut the inside of my nose, and here we are. But, it happens. It's part of the risk you take, and I was fine.
Part of the business. Well, we have
Yep.
to point out those things, that it's not all fun and games,
No, one of the things I like to always say about wrestling is none of it is fake. I hate when people say, oh, wrestling's just fake. No, everything we do is absolutely real. And that's just the truth, and accidents happen.
Well, yes, my son trains because there's a kids class with Mr. Robert Gibson here in Douglasville, and
Okay.
he informed me. Well, first off, I don't know if you've ever seen the why is it on the tip of my tongue? That WCW. I can't even think of it now. Why? Why can I think of this movie? It's a WCW movie and Ready to Rumble. Thank you. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
All right. You seen that movie before?
I have. It's been a long time, but I have seen it. So remembering details, I don't know. But.
Well, no, you probably don't have to remember the details, but there was an old trainer in there that would just pop up out of nowhere. Hey, you want to wrestle that guy?
Okay, yeah.
Robert Gibson is very much like him. where you could just be walking by and he'll just, hey, let me show you something. And before you know it, he'll lock you in an arm lock or something like that. I mean, he was. I say all of that to say his description of wrestling is as such like, I can do what guys in MMA do. I just don't go the extra mile.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
So that's it. I wanted to give credit to the right person. So that was him, and I've seen him do it. I mean, he'd take a student like, all right, I want you to try to move me, and can't do it. Even at this stage of his life, he's like, he will turn somebody inside out. So that's a quick plug for him.
Yeah.
And now, getting back to where I was, your tattoo on your left arm, what does it say, and is there any significant meaning to it?
Yes, all of my tattoos have a lot of meaning, actually. But that one says, I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always. And it's a children's book that's called I'll Love You Forever that my mom read to me when I was a kid. And my mom, in the same place on her arm, has as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be, which is the second half of that phrase. So when we stack our arms, you have the whole phrase from the book that she read me when I was a child.
Oh, cool.
So,
well, that's
yeah,
sweet.
that's kind of my tribute to her.
Okay. Cool
And
deal.
we did them together. I got a cool mom, so.
I see that. All right. Well, I don't know if I should ask about any other tattoos. I mean, clearly,
if there's any other ones you're curious about, I've got stories. So.
Well, I mean, that one specifically, I was like, I can't. It was a picture. I was like, I can't read it. I don't know what this is. So I wanted to make sure I got that in. We talked about one tag team, so now we have to talk about another, the Kimber Bombs.
Yes.
How did that team come about?
It was honestly kind of a random pairing at my first ever Shimmer. They had a spot open for me to tag with Cherry Bomb, and I did, and it was, just kind of magic at first team, and we stuck together and ended up kind of conquering tag team wrestling for women for a while, and it was pretty awesome. At one point, we were both Shine and Shimmer Tag Team Champions at the same time, and I also had the WSU Tag Team Championship at the same time with Annie Social, and I'm pretty sure I'm the only woman ever to do that. I hold all three at once, and then Laura and I were the only women to ever hold those two at once, so that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. I mean, considering that those companies are basically the recognized Triple Crown, if you will, for women's wrestling. I mean, as it stands, of course, there's many, I don't want to slight any all-female promotions that's across the country, but just on the stake of the lineage, the amount of talent that's gone through and whatnot, WSU, Shimmer, Shine, they have pretty well covered the gambit.
I
think that's fair to say. So, I mean, I guess you have... No, you already got Shine. Does Rise have a tag team division? I was going to say, I guess you got one more to conquer here.
Rise, yeah, well, I mean, I'm kind of singles wrestler now. Rise didn't really come around until I was gone. So once I was released and came back, I've really just kind of been a singles wrestler at the moment. But you never know. I've been tagging with Hot Scoop Skylar here and there, and I feel like we gel really well together, so that could be a thing.
Well, I'm just saying that just to complete the set.
Yes, I would like to.
One more that needs to happen. I mean, if you're a completionist, that is.
Yes. Well, and I would say WWR too, but they don't have titles, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I will say I think my first exposure to the Kimber Bombs was Shine 26. That was Kimber Bombs versus G3. And that was fun to watch.
Yeah.
But I like champion versus champion matches, so that
was an awesome one.
The landscape of wrestling seemingly has changed drastically in the last 2 or 3 years, we'll say since 2015. As somebody that's on the inside of the business, what's your impressions of being an independent wrestler in 2019?
There's just so much opportunity for everyone everywhere right now. I feel like wrestling has been on the rise, and it's just a good time to be a wrestler, period, whether you're anywhere. Like, there's just a lot more places, and especially for the women, like, we're getting a lot more recognition too, and that's really cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know how far back your memory goes. I guess my first time actively watching independent wrestling probably was, 2000, 2001. I think there was a website called Glory Girl Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I saw people like Mercedes and Cindy Rogers and who would go on to become Gail Kim. I forget what name she was working at. Lafalina. She was working under that at the time. But clearly there wasn't a lot of places to go. You know, there might have been, once TNA started doing a women's division, then it became someplace, but that was one of hundreds across the country. But now you got so much. I mean,
and it's just awesome. And like even the companies that were male driven, a lot of them are opening up and putting the females in too, and that's really cool and more opportunities.
Well, you know, being that you're one of the intergender icons, I guess it doesn't matter where you go. You know?
Yes, I like wrestling anywhere, anytime, any person.
No preferences at all. I mean, you know, it's like, hey, I'd rather be in the ring with a guy or girl. I mean, it's just whoever.
I mean, intergender for me is very near and dear to my heart, just because it's something that I advocate for so strongly. But I like to say I just want to wrestle wrestlers because that's what I want to be seen as. I don't want to be judged based on my chromosomes, like, you know.
Indeed. Have you set goals for yourself since returning to the independents? Was it just like just one day at a time?
You know, for me, I just want to wrestle for as long as I can, as this is a feasible thing, and continue to have fun and see where I can go from here. You know, I want to travel more. I want to, a country I'd really like to go to is Australia. That's on my bucket list. I want to go back to Europe, you know, and keep having fun and doing this thing that I love.
Well, I certainly don't see any reason why you should stop. I think you'll go as long as you choose to go. If there has been a wrestling fan that has been under a rock and they don't know who Kimber Lee is, I mean, you know, by description, like if you were introduced to somebody who had no idea and you had to describe Kimber Lee, how would you describe that or her? I know I'm speaking in third person here, but yes.
Yes. I would say that Kimber Lee is somebody who doesn't let other people put her down based on anything. No matter what your take on me is, I'm going to continue to think of myself as the crown jewel that I am. And everybody should think of themselves that way. And we also should look at ourselves as being able to save ourselves, and don't look at yourself as lesser because you're a woman or for any reason for that matter, and fight for what you believe in.
Yay. All right. If that's not a babyface promo there, I don't know what it is. See, I still have a hard time seeing you as heel, Kimber. I'm sorry. I know you told me not to take appearances, you know, lightly, but you sound like such a good person. Anyway, I don't know if this is something that you want to go into. If you don't, I totally get it. But on your Instagram in October 2017, October 16th to be specific, you posted Me Too, which, of course, at that time, what has now become the Me Too movement has, you know, was taking place. So I'm assuming that you have dealt with a similar incident. I mean, not to be a downer here, but is there anything that you would like to share about it or talk about, or just kind of, you know, shuffle it off or whatever?
You know, I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but for me, it's just a situation where I think every woman at some point has experienced, we all, like, the catcalling, and I bartend and waitress, and just, like, I've had some horrible things said to me being in those situations, and, like, just having to learn how to, like, it's like 1 in 5 women are raped. Like, it's, the statistics are scary, and, like, it's just something where I think at some point all of us have experienced it on some level. I'm not going to go into detail of what level mine is because I'm not at a point in my life where I'm ready to do that. But And that's something that shouldn't be, you know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't go to work and wonder, like, oh, who's going to, like, try to grab my ass today while I'm walking by with servants? You know, like, it's just, and so I feel like at that time when that was happening, it was also just a way for all of us to stand together and say, it's happened to me too.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, and again, I certainly don't want you to have to talk about anything that you're uncomfortable with, so I just felt I should ask, but we will move on.
Yeah.
And like I said, and folks, Mr. Green is sorry for being a downer here. You know, I didn't mean to bring we were high energy there for a second, but you know, but I'll bring it back up with this one right here. So I can only imagine, and this is my impression of you, being that and I think several other people kind of view you as one of the top tier ladies out on the circuit right now, that you've been approached by multiple independent companies and perhaps some larger ones, such as a Ring of Honor or Impact, or, you know, maybe. Has that offer ever been extended to you for any of these companies?
The answer is no. I'm right now there's nothing on the table other than me being independent. Am I completely open to signing something and looking into a contract? Absolutely. But it's just a matter of timing, and if it's going to happen, it'll happen when it's supposed to. And so as of right now, I'm still a free agent.
Free agency is good. Have you seen WoW since this rebirth?
I have seen bits and pieces, mostly just the clips and stuff I can see online. Cable is not a thing I have, nor would it be worth it if I paid for it, because again, 30-hour work week on top of wrestling. But I do catch what I can when I can, and it looks pretty good from what I've seen.
It does, and I guess I don't know if I should say this and draw attention to somebody's YouTube channel, but so I'll leave the name out. Other than to say this, the entirety of the show isn't there, but there are matches that are available. Like every match that WoW has produced in this season is available to be seen. I'll put it that way. You may not get the vignettes and storylines necessarily between all that, but this particular person and his channel, I assume it's a he, has all the matches available for yourself and whoever's out there listening. So there you have it.
Mm-hmm.
If you do not have access to Access TV, which I didn't. Yeah, I know that's kind of a weird statement, but which I didn't, but I had to do my review, so I got a hold of Sling and started watching. But I asked that to ask this. It is minutely different than your Ring of Honor / Women of Honors and the Knockouts division and some of these other places, only in that they're a lot more character driven and is more of a TV show than it is a wrestling promotion. But at the same time, they have reached out to a lot of indie wrestlers as of late to kind of fill the roster. If you were approached by them, and I mean, they probably would ask, at least, would you be willing to take a character? Would that be something that you would consider also?
Yeah, it would. I'm not unfamiliar with doing character work. Like I said, I play a flapper girl. I'm the princess at Takara, you know. I like doing that kind of thing as well. I think it's taking another aspect that's a part of me and bringing that out and making it the biggest part when I get to perform. And of course, I would be totally open to doing something like that.
Cool. David McClain, jump on it.
I'm like, hey, what about like my dancing stuff? What if I came in there and did that? I've never had a dancing character in wrestling. I've always wanted to.
But who would you be? Now that would be the question. You know, because I'm assuming that if you're going to be the dancing girl, you can't go as Kimber Lee. You got to be somebody different.
Yeah.
You know,
you'd have to see. That would be something to brainstorm with creators, you know?
well, you know, their names are, I'm not going to say they're simple. That would be insulting to them, but they're usually pretty easy to fire, Fury, Chainsaw, Spike, you know. Other than that, I mean, other than like Princess Aussie, I think most of them are basically pretty simple names to kind of produce. I think you could probably just come up with something. You may just need to send something out to Dave McClain and the Y offices right now, because I mean, you as the dancing girl of the show is a shoe-in. Maybe that came out wrong.
No, I get what you mean.
Okay. I didn't think about that until it just left my mouth. I was like, that didn't sound right.
Oh,
but you got it.
Like, you gotta understand, I grew up with like, hey, what is your career? Oh, I'm a dancer. Do you know how many weird looks you get when you say that at first? I gotta be like, no. Classically trained.
You know, I hadn't thought about that aspect of it.
No, I understand. I know what you mean.
That's funny. How about this? Hey, what club? No, not that.
No.
I'm real dancing, fool. Okay, all right. Well, see, look, I think you can have your gimmick right there. Look at that. You can incorporate that and go into WoW as the girl that's like, all I wanted to do was dance in my life, but this is what I could find as work.
Oh, gosh, no.
No. You can't. No, they can't bring up holy. I mean, they're family friendly. That's just backstory. Yeah. You had that backstory.
Yeah.
But you come into WoW, it's like, this is my opportunity to show the world that I can really dance, and you know.
Yeah.
Had the old 20s thing like he had it in old wrestling, and bam, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's lots of stuff I could do.
You could be Tiffany Two-Step or something like that. I don't know. Well, I figure it's got to be some kind of, you know, cartoony name or, you know, something along those lines. So, you know, that's the best I come with off the top of my head. I mean, you know, don't crucify me over that one.
No.
Okay. I've sidetracked again. So, yes, let me rope it back around. When did this happen? 2017. I, along with several other news outlets, reported that the signing of yourself, Andrea, Mickey James, Heidi Lovelace, Julia Ho, were all being picked up by, well, relatively at the same time. I don't know if it was all at the same time, but relatively close. Was this a case of them reaching out to you reaching out to them? Can you expound on how that came about?
I mean, I was reached out to go down for a tryout, and so I went through the tryout process that everybody goes through, and from that I got my email that said they wanted to sign me, and so it was just kind of the process you hear most people go through. It wasn't anything. I mean, I had my recruit page filled out, and I had kept that updated. I believe recently-ish, within the last year or two, it's changed a little bit how that page works, but I know there is still that system, some form of that system around. And yeah, that's how it happened.
Okay. So it wasn't just the magical story that you personally got the call from Vince McMahon, hey, I want you on my show. Yeah.
No, it wasn't one of those.
Well, I know. It just sounded good, though, didn't it? You know?
Yeah.
Can you talk about what a day was like as a NXT signee or NXT star?
I mean, you train every day and just train every day, promo classes, you know, just working on your craft, and that's what you do, and it's what you're focused on pretty much 24/7, and shows pretty much every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Some people travel, some people don't, and you know, it's a lot. It's a lot to put your body through, but if it's what you want to do for the rest of your life and it's something you're passionate about, you're willing to train and put that time in.
So, I once heard NXT described as, how did he put it? It was the WWE in an independent package. I guess that's
not a terrible way to put it. I mean, because, you know, we, for our, like, road shows and stuff, we get there early, we set up the ring. Like, there's no crew to do it other than us, and, you know, that would be something I think that definitely comes from the independent, is, you know, when you're new, you pay your dues and you set up the ring and you get there early, and it's kind of the same thing when you're doing those shows for because there's people coming in who have no experience with wrestling at all, and so they got to get, you know, learn how to be in front of a crowd like that, and those are kind of what those road shows are for.
Okay. And two things out of that statement. One, the road shows, oftentimes you see pictures get released and they look, the venues are way different than what people would associate with, I guess, particularly NXT now, because most often they see the televised version of it. They see it at Full Sail, and they see the takeover shows, which are vastly bigger. But the photos that release, again, don't look all that much different than, say, an indie show.
They really aren't, other than the fact that we bring in lighting rigs and really good sound equipment. Like,
okay.
You know, like, it's really not much different, like, other than, like, the money probably that they have to throw at set pieces. But it's us bringing the ring in, setting it up, setting up all that sound and lighting equipment, setting up the chairs. It's a lot of, like, different, you know, gymnasiums in, like, a recreational center that you would find yourself wrestling at on the independents too. So they really are trying to give their version of that experience. It's not a bad way to describe it at all.
I am so glad that you said that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I say that because that, you know, and again, not going to call any names or anything like that. There are some that feel that once the magic NXT pill is taken, I won't have to do this stuff anymore.
No, that's not the case at all. No,
Well,
you're still going to set up a ring. Get used to it. Everyone does it. Everyone, from the people up at the top to the people who just got there. Everyone helps. But it goes fast because there's like 90 of you. So.
Oh, so it's a little bit different. I mean, I know at least on the independent shows here that I covered, clearly there's not 90 people on any given show.
No. That's the one thing that they, like, you're homegrown from there that you never have to do is to set up the ring with 2 people day. I've done that. It's not fun.
But still, I'm glad that you're able to give a first-hand account, because again, there are some out there that have a misinterpretation of what they might get if they make it there, and I shouldn't have to say. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it where.
I mean, you're going to see that kind of anywhere, but you know, it's just be ready to work hard, because they're not bringing you down there to give you an easy route. You still have to be committed, and you still have to be willing to bust your ass.
Good. I am going to deviate from my next set of questions, because I want to ask you, as a worker of 10 years, properly trained and everything else, because here's is another situation that I've come across as reporting this type of stuff. There are a few young ladies who have openly admitted that they have not been trained at all. And yet and still get booked on shows, probably to the dismay of the person that they're working with. My question to you here is, in this case like that, what do you do? Because on the one hand, let's take you, for example. You're well-rounded. You've done this for a while. You could probably carry somebody who hasn't had any training to a decent enough match. But do you feel like if you do that, I am now enabling this person to go get the next gig because I've made them look good? But
that's a tough one, just because you know, here's my take on somebody not getting training. Every time we go into a wrestling ring, I'm saying, here is my body so we can do this thing and make magic happen. I'm trusting you to protect me. And if you haven't put in the effort, taken the time, done what you need to do in order to be able to protect somebody, you're literally risking somebody's life, somebody's livelihood, somebody's everything. Because every single one of us, every single time we step in that ring, are one injury away from never doing it again. And that's just the reality of any sort of physical sport. And so for me, like, it's kind of blatant disrespect to all of us to not have had any proper training. You know, I think that going to a reputable school and doing your research and knowing that you're going to have good teachers is just something that needs to happen. Now, if I was in a situation where I was on a show and I find out I'm wrestling somebody who's never had proper training, I'm already in that, like, I'm already there, I'm already in that situation. I know that with 10 years of experience, I can protect myself. So I could, like you said, have a match with this person, and I probably would, because I have also made my prior commitment to this company, and I'm not going to not honor my commitments. That's what I do. I'm a professional. However, this person is going to get nothing where they have an opportunity to hurt me in this match, because that's how I'm going to run it at that point. And I think but like I said, I have 10 years of experience. I know how to do this, and I'm at a point in my wrestling career where I can tell somebody, no, you're not doing that. This is what we're going to do. And I'm also somebody who's comfortable enough to be like, I'll see you when we have to wrestle, and walk away. So, but I know a lot of people aren't in that stage, and I feel like you really need to think about it. And if you're somebody who's newer and you find this out and you're nervous and you're scared and you do not feel safe, do not do it. You can say no. You don't have to. Well, me saying, like, I want to honor my other commitments, it's because I can. If you're somebody who's been wrestling for a hot cup of coffee and you don't feel like you can handle that situation, nobody is going to hold it against you who is properly trained. None of us would ever hold it against you that you walked away from that. You have to keep yourself safe, number one, period. And then I would probably yell at this person after the match and tell him to go get trained or never get in a wrestling ring again.
And you say you want to teach? I think you're doing some teaching right now.
I'm going to just drop my microphone after that.
That might be the moment. Just bam, just drop it. You know, maybe this should be Kimber Lee Masterclass. You might need to just get you a camera and sit at home and just vent. It's like, hey, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
That could work, you know. People would pay. I'm just saying.
Maybe. Hi, Spots. What are you doing? No, just kidding. Or am I kidding?
See, listen to you. I'm just kidding. Not really. Yeah, well, hey, it could work. I mean, look, what's that? Idea number 3? Bam. I mean, this is quite a productive podcast, I must say. At least I feel so. Getting back to NXT. See, that might have been the third or fourth time I've also gone off the rails. But getting back to NXT. The Mae Young Classic. How did you hear that this was taking place? And did you have any knowledge about we are picking you to win this thing, or, you know, whatever the case would be?
No, going into it, we had no idea what was going to happen. None of us really did at all. And, I mean, we had, like, I was already in a part of NXT when they started to talk about the fact that this women's show was going to happen, so I just knew about it from being there. And then at one point, Coach Amato, Sarah, pulled us all a group of us aside and was just like, just so you know, you guys are all picked. You get to be part of the Mae Young Classic. And I don't think they ever used the footage, but they filmed us like getting told that for the first time, and it was just a crazy feeling. It was, you know, I had been there at this point since January, and summer was coming up, and it was just a really cool thing to finally find out that you're going to get to be a part of something that's history making.
Cool. And don't worry about that lost footage. I'm pretty sure when they release the Mae Young Classic 10th anniversary set a decade from now, all of that footage will be there.
Oh yeah, it'll still be there.
Of course, you know they don't get rid of anything. They're smart like that. I have to give them credit. Keep those cameras rolling.
Mhm.
Okay, so I might be overlooking another appearance on the show, but was that your first televised exposure in NXT, the Classic, or did you appear on something prior to that?
That was the first major thing I did. I had been on a couple. I had appeared as Kimber Lee once before I was signed, and then I had appeared again against Ruby Riott before she was Ruby Riott. So I was on there a few times before the Mae Young, but Abbey Laith was born until the Mae Young.
Okay, and that was the next question. Where did that name come from?
It was actually my choice, and there's a lot of meaning behind it. The way it was spelled, Abbey with the EY, it's all a rough translation from Gaelic words. I did chop them up a bit just to make it a little more name-like, but it roughly, the Abbey translates to Little Smith, and Smith is my mom's maiden name, and it honors my grandfather, who was a wrestler, not a professional wrestler, but he wrestled in high school and lettered all 4 years, and this was back when it was really hard to do that. And so it kind of honored him too, and then Laith came from the word Orlaith, which is princess. So I stuck it in there.
Well, you learn something new I certainly have. I learned something new now. So now anybody that's asked about why she got her name changed, she chose it, man. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't forced upon her, I would imagine. Is there any particular reason that they just say, hey, you know what, we want to change your name? I should ask, was there any reason given?
I mean, it's legal reasons. They want to be able to copyright your name and own the rights to the footage and everything. And Kimber Lee couldn't own that in my contract. It was mine. So.
Oh, smart.
Yep.
Very smart. Yeah, I like it. Okay, so now that you've explained something else that people have gone on and complained about, it's not just a case of we want to throw something at you, but you protected yourself as well.
Mm-hmm.
In a business decision, and that seems a genius move. You know, cover yourself, cover your bases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because that's the thing. If I would have given up that name, I couldn't be that now. And you know, a name is a name. Like if that's gonna be the one thing that you're hung up on, and you can't surpass that, and you're already kind of doomed in wrestling, because you never know what's going to get thrown at you.
Good point. Here's another little tidbit that, you know, lots of fans kind of feel as it relates to WWE. Does it seem as if, in your opinion, that they are stockpiling talent? And I should say, and let me clarify, I don't mean that necessarily negatively, but there's a constant. We've just signed a bunch of people. You know, there's all. I want to say let's say every quarter or so. There's always that release, and not necessarily people that are wrestlers, as you said earlier. There's some people who have never done it at all, and we're just signing. Does it feel that way to you?
I feel like they're just always trying to look around and freshen the pot and see what they can find. I don't think it's stockpiling or anything other. They're just trying to keep everything fresh and keep their brand relevant and new, and that's bringing in fresh faces and seeing who's going to fit.
Okay. That works. I'm trying to remember here. You were first round with the alpha female, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I just bring that up to point out the fact that you two have had a rematch. I don't know how recent that was. How long ago was that? Was it? It was within the calendar year, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say within the last 365 days. I'm assuming the rematch between Kimber Lee, the alpha female, did take place, albeit outside of a NXT environment. Again, I wanted to point that out. And if anybody's out there that had, well, it was Powerbomb TV. It's no longer that.
Independent Wrestling TV now.
Thank you. I was drawing another blank. So Independent Wrestling TV, you can find that match, which is a fun match. And I guess we turned around and got the win back. And alpha female decided to be as cruel, as mean as she possibly could. Anyway.
Yep.
But it was fun to watch and all that good stuff. So I just wanted to make sure that I pointed a finger at that for anybody that was interested in watching that. As we go into the end portion of your NXT run, clearly we all know now, it's common knowledge, you parted ways with the company. And we've heard some people mention, they got a phone call or whatever the case may be. Is there any lights that you may want to shine in that scenario as to, how it took place? Or, I mean, it just is what it is, whatever.
It's one of those things where it is what it is what I'm going to say. It wasn't a bad parting or anything like that. It's just a situation where the timing wasn't correct. I'm still getting to do what I love. Would I go back? Yes. And you just never know what's going to happen with this business. I don't think any door ever completely closes, and you just never know. And as long as I'm still happy and doing what I love, then I'm content.
Well, you sound very content. Years ago, when I've heard people do that, there was some that lived and died by "I got to get back." Mm-hmm. I don't get that vibe from you. Like, I get it. Like, if the timing came up again and I had the opportunity to go back, that would be great. But it's not gnawing at your soul. I don't get that impression.
It's not going to completely ruin my life, because I think it comes from growing up in dance too. I'm kind of a realist when it comes to these sort of things, and I know what the percentage is I'm not going to say it could never happen, and I don't say that I don't want it to happen, but I'm also realistic in the fact that it might not. And if it doesn't, I'm still accomplished. I've still done a lot for wrestling, and that can never be taken away from me. And I wasn't released based on not having talent. I was released based on the timing for me to be there not being correct.
I can buy that. I mean, listen, I think you just covered one of my not last things, but one of the other things I wanted to say to you is, like, if you were to stop wrestling right now, you've accomplished a lot. We did cover that you kind of one day at a time. I mean, I was going to ask if you had any other personal goals to hit. But it sounds as if, as long as you're healthy and happy, the old phrase, that you're pretty much good to go.
I am.
Well, I'm going to sidetrack again and say one other thing. When in Atlanta, go visit the Slutty Vegan. This is a free plug for them. 1542.
I've heard about it.
Yeah, 1542 Ralph David Abernathy. The lines have been very long.
I have heard.
Oh yeah, they just had to turn it into like a parking lot party for a while there. So they just kind of put that on. Anybody that's in Atlanta that's looking for it, they announce where their truck is going to be on location at 3 p.m. every day on Instagram. You can go on the website, sluttyveganatl.com. That is just a free service announcement for them and for Kimber, so she knows where she can go when she comes in town. If she chooses to do that again. I don't know.
Hey, I'd love to come back.
It's time for random questions.
This is the time of the interview where I go off into random questions. Now, in your particular case, I've done random questions quite a bit. I think I went off track at some point here just because, but I'm officially going to go into random questions. This is the segment when I ask stuff that aren't necessarily wrestling related. So, Kimber Lee, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Hollywood makes a Kimber Lee movie. Who plays your part?
Everyone gives me this one, and my answer is always, I don't know.
You don't know? Okay, well,
no.
Why was the Star Wars solo
actors
movie?
And actress's name.
Oh, we'll leave that one alone. We'll say to be announced.
Yeah.
TBA. That's your answer from now on. To be announced.
Yeah.
What's the talent that your general fan base is unaware that you have?
I can. I mean, dance. Everyone's aware, but I knit. I knit a lot of things. I can knit pretty much anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why was the Star Wars solo movie crapped on by his fans?
I don't know. I enjoyed it. It was hard. I don't know. Harrison Ford will forever be. I don't know. It was very hard to fill those shoes. I feel might be part of it.
Well, my answer is because Star Wars fans are like wrestling fans, and some will never be happy.
No, that's true.
I didn't think the movie was bad, but I mean, you got to take into account that it's Star Wars, and they produce one once a year. There's no wait, fans, and they're spoiled. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Some Star Wars fans are just spoiled.
Yes, they are.
I know I made some people mad right now. Yeah, okay. You can send me the email, mrgreen75@hotmail.com. Yes, you can hit me. Zombified Kimber Lee. Could that be a new gimmick at least once a year?
Zombified Kimber Lee?
Zombified Kimber Lee. You said that you wanted to play a zombie, so Zombified Kimber Lee. Could that be a new gimmick?
I'd do it.
What's the best zombie movie ever made?
Dawn of the Dead.
Like that brought you to a slow halt there. But Dawn of the Dead. That's okay. There we go.
I had to think.
How good was the movie The Black Swan?
I really liked them taking it to a darker level. I mean, there's a lot of different variations of Swan Lake and how it goes, and I mean, people don't. Most of the time you get the kid-friendly, happy version where like dude gets girl back or dude runs off after the swan. But there was like the early versions, like no, like she dies and he commits suicide. Like it was a dark ballet in the beginning, so I liked it. I liked that they took that twist.
And it was a little, well, I'm gonna say not weird, but I guess it's open to interpretation at the end with the wings sprouting out of her back. So anyway.
Yeah, I think that was going more into the fact that she had mental problems herself and going into that aspect of it.
That's right. And folks, you can listen to Kimber Lee's review of The Black Swan. I know. Name me 3 things that are done in movies by and large that were done in movies by and large that wouldn't fly on screen today.
See, I'm a book reader. You can't ask me movie questions. I'm like, I don't know.
Okay, I'll give you one.
I mean, one I do know, I can say, is in Apocalypse Now, that's the last movie that they actually kill an animal in. And I'm quite happy that they don't do that anymore. Or like spaghetti westerns and make tripping the horses, stuff like that.
Well, see, there you go. That wouldn't fly in movies today. You cannot kill an animal just for the sake of we got to get the movie done. Also, old movies, everybody smokes. There's a casual attitude towards bullying. These are things I would accept. It villainizing nations, casual homophobia, rape is no big deal. Those things did take place in lots of movies back in the day, so we kind of moved past that now, amongst other things. What's up with the Disney princesses?
Oh, I love them. Disney is my favorite. Cinderella, to be specific.
Why Cinderella?
Because I was a little blonde girl, and she was the blonde one that I liked. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I guess we will mark that as they are happy people, and they're doing great. The Disney princess, and Cinderella's your favorite.
Yes.
And one of these days we will incorporate Kimber Lee as a Disney princess as well. Will Smith as the live-action genie, yay or nay?
I say yay, because no one's going to be Robin Williams. And I feel like Will Smith has the ability to do Genie in his own way enough to not try to be Robin Williams, which would have been a terrible route to go, I think. So
you are correct. Karen Smith, Emma Frost, and Cinderella. Why?
If you know me, you'll know that the blonde is real.
Okay.
Zach, my boyfriend, will tell you that too. I have way too many blonde moments. So I am Karen Smith. I am it's like I've got ESPN or something. And then Emma Frost, just because I feel like she was always my favorite X-Men. I feel like she was kind of one that people don't know as much about because she isn't in if you're a super comic book nerd, you know who she is. But
of course I do.
And it's like I just always liked the whole diamond exterior thing a lot too. And Cinderella, because she's my favorite Disney princess.
Okay, and we have to give note that Emma Frost did flip from being heel. And, if we could use wrestling terminology here. Because back in the day, she was evil.
Yes.
And her choice of clothing probably could stand some more, fabric. But, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, what I usually end up with here is fantasy booking, but we're not going to go into that because that would take too long to draw out some long angle and storyline and whatnot. We're not going to do that. However, I will ask because there is a series that I produce on Facebook, and I will tell people right now that if you want to hear this answer, you're going to have to go to the Facebook if she actually provides one. But there's a series I produce on Facebook on the Women's Pro Wrestling Network called Tales of the Creep. I'm sure the title alone will kind of hint you to where this is going because it's seemingly every woman wrestler has some guy that is online that sends them some message that is just off the chain or ridiculous or what have you. And as time passes, it seems to have become entertaining and funny in a weird way. So, Kimber, I'm going to ask you, what is your Tales of the Creep? Kimber Lee, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast with me. I really appreciate your time. You're welcome anytime. And if I ever get that zombie movie written, for whatever budget, I am calling you.
All right.
To
sounds like a plan.
As a zombie. So, for anybody, what's your Twitter handle? Just real quick.
Yes, my Twitter and my Instagram are the two social media things that I have that you can follow, and they are both the same handle. It's at Kimber_Lee90.
Well, there you have it, folks. If you're going to hit her up, please don't hit her up any weird stuff. Just, follow and watch her social media adventures. You can always find the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. Go to the Women's Pro Wrestling Network, all one word, on Facebook, or you can just hit WPNWrestling.com is the nexus for everything that I got. So, just to wrap this thing on up, this is Mr. Green with Kimber Lee, and I want to thank her for coming on. But this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying I will see you on the next go-round.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.